Excuse me, do you have a moment? In the calm ambience of a high-end restaurant, a young hostess suddenly approached me. I need to speak with you. Please come this way. The room the young hostess pointed to was devoid of my mill, who had invited me to this place today. As I tried to ask for the reason, the hostess firmly grasped my arm. Her hand was slightly trembling. My name is Jessica. I'm a 29-year-old working woman in the fashion industry, juggling both work and home life. I met Jason, who's my age, at a friend's wedding, and we got married 2 years ago. At the reception, we happened to be seated close by, and with some drinks, we quickly hit it off. Always gentle, and even though we're the same age, his composed demeanor drew me in. Being typically shy, I took the initiative, and we started dating. Our relationship was smooth, hardly any fights, and I think we both naturally considered marriage. But there was one serious conversation he had with me. It was about him being previously married. The reason for his divorce was due to differences they couldn't reconcile, and they didn't have any kids. Small issues accumulated over time, and they mutually agreed and parted ways. My husband, Jason, deeply regrets not being able to make his ex-wife happy, but he promised to cherish me even more because of that. When I told Jason I wanted to continue working after our marriage, he fully supported me, and we began sharing household chores once we started living together. He proposed after a year of dating, and despite our busy schedules, we've been happily married. We both love to eat, so on our days off, we often go to restaurants that caught our attention. However, I have a severe shellfish allergy, something I've always been cautious about. Jason always looked out for me, prioritizing my health above all. Whenever he made reservations, he'd always mention my shellfish allergy. I once lamented to him, wishing I didn't have this restriction, so we could enjoy meals more freely. He responded with, "There are plenty of other delicious things to eat. It's not worth getting too upset over," which lightened my mood. When we first got married, many colleagues and seniors warned me about potential issues with my mill, having an allergy that could be life-threatening. There are instances where it's been manipulated to cause tension between a daughter-in-law and her mill. So I was always conscious of maintaining boundaries with my in-laws. However, from the first time we met, my mill has been incredibly kind and always shown concern for me. After establishing a rapport with my mill, I confided in her about my allergy. She was understanding and shared. My father had a severe fruit allergy when he was alive. He often mentioned how hard it was to always be cautious about what he ate. I can imagine how tough it is for you, Emily. Please feel free to discuss anything with me. Her words eased my concerns, making me feel a little lighter inside. We rented an apartment close to my in-laws' home. Living nearby naturally led to more frequent interactions with them. I became especially close with my mill, and we went shopping together about once a month. Our destinations included grocery stores, department stores, and clothing boutiques. Whenever we had some free time, we'd go to the movies and sometimes grab a meal at a diner before heading home. When we visited a new place, my mill would always take the initiative to check for allergy-friendly food for me. But, feeling guilty for always troubling her about my allergies, I made sure that every third outing or so with my mill was without dining out. After doing this a few times, the number of times she'd suggest dining out started to decrease. However, just as I began to feel at ease, one day my mill made a proposal out of the blue. At the start of the new fiscal year, I was appointed as the assistant manager of the store I work at, and boy, did my mill get thrilled about it. Still riding that high, she said, "Let's celebrate your promotion, Emily," and showed me a flyer of a special place she had in mind. Whenever we had some free time, we'd go to the movies and sometimes grab a meal at a diner before heading home. When we visited a new place, my mill would always take the initiative to check for allergy-friendly food for me. But, feeling guilty for always troubling her about my allergies, I made sure that every third outing or so with my mill was without dining out. After doing this a few times, the number of times she'd suggest dining out started to decrease. However, just as I began to feel at ease, one day my mill made a proposal out of the blue. At the start of the new fiscal year, I was appointed as the assistant manager of the store I work at, and boy, did my mill get thrilled about it. Still riding that high, she said, "Let's celebrate your promotion, Emily," and showed me a flyer of a special place she had in mind. I'd never heard Bob mention that before, but I guess it might not be something one just casually talks about. Eventually, persuaded by my mill's passion, I accepted the invitation. The earliest reservation was a month away, and it was on a weekday evening. For that day, I spoke to my job, took a half day off, and scheduled a salon visit in the afternoon. As I was researching dress codes and dining etiquette, Bob chuckled, "Emily, you're the guest. You can take it easy. But if I inadvertently do something rude, it'd be embarrassing for Mill, right? Especially since it's a place she's familiar with. Makes me even more nervous." "Oh, is that so?" Receiving such an unexpected response, I instinctively looked back at Bob. The very same Bob seemed just as surprised. "I never heard anything like that from Mom," he muttered. "You mean Mill used to frequent that place?" Bob nodded to my query, which had me pondering again. Why wouldn't she mention this even to her own son? Was there some special circumstance? Did I mess up by letting Bob in on this? But after all, both of us are grown-ups, and maybe we're not the type to discuss every little thing. Besides, if she truly didn't want it known, she wouldn't have mentioned it to me. Maybe I'm just being overly sensitive from the nerves. Convincing myself of this, the topic was settled. Then on the day, while I was at the hair salon, I arranged to meet my Mill who was out shopping, and we walked to the restaurant. I never thought I'd actually go into this place, having only ever seen its exterior. I expressed my gratitude to her again, to which she replied, "It's all right. Let's just enjoy today," covering her mouth with a playful smirk. Upon entering the restaurant, we were greeted by the hostess. We were led to a private room at the very back of the second floor, bathed in ambient lighting that created a charming atmosphere. Since it was still early, no other customers were around, making it quiet. While waiting for our dishes to arrive, we chatted and sipped on our drinks. My Mill, aware of my love for alcohol, ordered a delightful steak for us. Normally, I wouldn't drink because I often arrive for Mike, who's in sales and frequently hosts clients. But she said, "Tonight, it's all about you, Yvonne," giving me a warm smile. The ambience of the restaurant and the drink soon had me feeling lightheaded and tipsy. However, at that moment, my cell phone rang. Regretting not having silenced my phone, I realized it was too late. To make matters worse, the caller was my boss from work. Any buzz from the drink vanished instantly, and I was overtaken by a gloomy feeling. Wondering if there was an issue at the restaurant, I excused myself to my Mill, filled with guilt, and stepped outside. Since my purse still contained items from my morning shift, I took it along to ensure work-related confidentiality. The call was about an oversight in my daily report. My boss said they'd handle it this time, but reminded me to be more attentive. I apologized. Making such a basic mistake on the day I'm being celebrated for my promotion made me realize I still have a lot to learn. Reminding myself not to get too carried away, I decided to mute my phone and head back to my Mill. Suddenly, a woman appeared before me, blocking my path. Confused, I hesitated for a moment, only for her to grab my wrist and pull me into an empty room. Too shocked to speak, my mouth agape, she urgently whispered, "You need to get out of here now." She introduced herself as the young manager of the restaurant. She showed me her name tag, assuring me she wasn't a threat. The young manager quickly explained the situation, saying there wasn't much time. What she told me was shocking enough to send shivers down my spine. She had already arranged a taxi to get me out of there and escorted me to the entrance. "Please go somewhere far where your Mill can't find you," she advised as I was leaving. I couldn't help but wonder how she knew about my relationship with my Mill. That night, I received a furious call from my enraged Mill. As soon as I answered, she yelled, "Why did you leave me behind? Are you even human? Because of you." I was embarrassed. "How could you do this to your Mill you're supposed to care for? I'm so disappointed in you. I never want to see your face again. I thought you'd at least have the decency to explain, but you didn't even contact me. What kind of upbringing did you have? I can even tell your parents how ungrateful their daughter is." My Mill's tone had completely shifted to one of utter disgust. "You're not going to say anything, huh? I could have the restaurant contact the police, you know." It was then that I finally spoke up. "The reason the restaurant owner is familiar with you isn't because you're a regular, right?" "What? What are you talking about?" "I'll explain later. First, I want to know why you didn't inform the restaurant about my allergy. This hasn't been an issue before, so why now?" Turns out, my Mill's reservation call was answered by that same young manager. At that time, my Mill had informed the restaurant that there were no allergies in our party. "You knew exactly what I can't eat and how severe my reactions are, didn't you? And yet—" "I don't recall. It was so long ago, I can't remember everything," Mill responded in a faint, innocent tone. "Did you intentionally try to make me eat shellfish at that moment? Why are you painting me as the villain? You're truly rude," she replied, clearly playing dumb. I continued. "Actually, the young manageress there approached me about my allergy when I was outside." "The young manageress? Is she still around?" I caught the mumbling comments my Mill made under her breath. But I didn't need to ask her to repeat. I already knew everything. She noticed my allergy badge on my bag and addressed it. So I openly shared my shellfish allergy with her. That's when she informed me that she hadn't been told about my allergy by you, and that a seafood-heavy meal was reserved for that day. She wanted to make sure I was aware, especially since both our meals were to be prepared the same way. You know why she'd go to such lengths, don't you?" As my Mill remained silent, I pressed on. "The young manageress, Chisato, was apparently Hiroki's ex-wife, right?" There was a sharp, sking sound from the other end of the line. "I heard that she was tormented behind the scenes, especially when your husband and Hiroki weren't around. From what I understand, Chisato was a homemaker back then and lived with you. Most household chores were pushed onto her, and she was constantly berated for her cleaning and cooking skills. This mistreatment led to her being driven out, and eventually, it caused her and Hiroki to divorce. That woman told you that?" Mill let out a mocking laugh. It was the same insinuating smile she gave me when we entered the restaurant. "She's quite delusional. The fact that she was poo at household chores is true. Besides, didn't Hiroki know about it? I thought it would be cruel to tell him, so I kept quiet. It's sad that he was told to divorce without even knowing the reason. If anything, Hiroki's the real victim here. Didn't you refrain from telling him to avoid painting yourself in a bad light, Mill?" Sure. Think whatever you want. It's not like I'll be seeing you again anyway." Mill's attitude changed entirely. Until I spoke with Catherine, I never imagined she had such a background. After her divorce from Bob, Catherine started working at that restaurant. Due to her dedication and humility, she was promoted to assistant manager. The manager and the owner didn't have children, so they treated Catherine like their own daughter. At the same time, they rigorously trained her to be a successful businesswoman. However, somehow catching wind of this, Mill started frequently showing up at the restaurant. Then, claiming Catherine is my relative. She seemed to cozy up to the owners, likely hoping to use her connection to enjoy meals at a discount. While she never explicitly said so, her sleazy glances and demeanor, along with her typical behavior, made it evident she could be plotting something like that. The day I visited with Mill, Catherine recognized me at first sight as Bob's new wife. She feared Mill might treat me badly due to allergies, so she warned me in advance. When I asked her how she knew I was Bob's wife, she shyly told me, "Well, that lady has such a personality that she has hardly any friends. Seeing her bring a woman around my age, I figured you're probably her new daughter-in-law." I admired Catherine for her resilience and grace amidst Mill's harassment. After expressing my gratitude, I promised to visit her restaurant again and hopped into a cab. Then I headed straight to my parents' home. My sudden return surprised my parents, but they calmly listened to everything I had to say. I called Bob, who was at home, explained the situation, and had him come over to my folks' place. Once everyone was gathered, Mill called. I promptly set the phone to speaker and started recording before answering. "Mill, is there anything else you'd like to discuss?" "Not anymore. I've seen your true colors now." Just stay out of my life." Mill merely snorted in response. "Just so you know, this will be the last time we talk. Please listen." "Why are you so persistent?" "Actually, this call is being recorded. Bob and my parents are all listening, so there's no need for you to explain anything, Mill. Just thought you should know." "What?" For a moment, I could genuinely sense time stopping for Mill. I could easily imagine her face turning pale blue. Is Bob there? Can I speak to him?" "I've heard everything, Mom." Bob's low voice was clear, and I could tell it made his Mill flinch. "It's not like that, Bob. I truly forgot about the allergy." "It's too late for excuses now. You even kept the thing with Jennifer a secret until now. I'm truly disappointed in you, Mom. Just don't contact me anymore." "Hold on. Just hear me out a bit." Despite her desperate plea, Bob hung up the phone without a second thought. After that, Bob explained the situation to his father-in-law and even mentioned Jennifer. When the father-in-law confronted Mill about her actions, she apparently said she grew increasingly annoyed with me. At first, it seemed the Mill took a liking to me since I gladly accepted her invitations. However, as the neighbors began to hold me in higher regard compared to her, jealousy started creeping in. Previously, she'd dismissed Jennifer as the inept daughter-in-law to boost her own self-worth. But once Jennifer was out of the picture and she had no one to belittle, it seems she lost her outlet for stress. When the new girl in town, me, started receiving compliments from neighbors, her stress seemed to amplify. It appears that the Mill just couldn't stand others getting praised more than her. Jealous of comments like "she's so pretty" or "such a capable wife," she plotted to put me in harm's way. Having no relatives nearby and left out on the streets, the Mill tried contacting Jason. But Jason, having severed ties, wasn't about to respond, so she surprisingly reached out to me next. While on the phone, I informed her I was in the process of claiming compensation for damages. To my inconvenience, she began sobbing right then and there. Reluctantly, I tried to calm the Mill down and suggested she find a part-time job to get by. Still, she whined, saying I don't want to work, and why is this happening to me? I hinted at seeking advice from a lawyer to increase the compensation amount, and that made her cooperate. Yet, she consistently sends the compensation every month, so I assumed she's managing her life decently. There was one silver lining in all of this. It was getting to know Christine well. I thought it might be a bit awkward for Jason, but that didn't matter. Christine and I hit it off. Jason apologized again for not being able to shield us from the Mill's harassment and reconciled with Christine. Christine shared that she's now seeing a great guy at that fancy restaurant and is quite happy. A few days later, Jason, his father, and I celebrated my promotion together. Getting a reservation at that popular restaurant on such short notice was all thanks to Christine's thoughtfulness. After the busy hours passed, Christine joined us, and we had a delightful evening together.